Hello, welcome to the morning program, The Dailies, where we keep you updated with all the news and current affairs from the papers. I am Sada Elisha Dasham, and I'll be doing the program with Rachel Tansy. Good morning.
Good morning, Celine.
Happy weekend.
Thank you, Shisi.
All right, thank you. And to our viewers, remember you can be part of the conversation by actually watching it live on Facebook and on YouTube as well. And we should go straight into the papers, starting with the Blueprint newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, APC to establish Youth Women Physically Challenged Secretariat. A statement coming from Ganduje. You can find details on page 6. Bode George 2 Atiku Parish Thoughts on 2027 Presidency. Airtel Africa profit after tax declines to $2 million in 9 months. Angola goalkeeper out of Super Eagles AFCON clash. You can find details on page 31. And the big story on the paper, Matawale to Katsina elders and others. Don't pitch not against other regions. Says CBN FAAN offices relocation won't cost Tinubu 2027. Recalls Nigerians never protested over Dara varsity in Katsina. You can start with the details on the front page. 7 months not enough to fix Nigeria. Federal government tells citizens. The writer saying CNG initiative to bring down cost of transportation by 50%. A statement from Idris. Abductor seeks 290 million naira ransom spaghetti for pregnant woman. 6 others released. You can start with the details on the front page. And on marginalization, sit up, stop self-pity, Abaribe charges Indibo. World Leprosy Day, Kano renovate leprosarium, treats 333 patients. And at the downside of the paper, global cut in rates by central banks will ensure foreign investors return. You can find details on page 20. That's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, agony of road users, over 120 as extortion points, double travel time. Travelers paying in the southeast, and here we're seeing talking about a minimum of 120 stops, almost in quick succession on the 464-kilometer strip between Lagos Aba was witnessed by travelers, and then at an average of 5 minutes delay at each stop if both the gatekeeper and the drivers are in the mood to play the bill. The 120 checkpoints imply 10 hours of extra travel time per trip. So we hope the government will take a look at all of this extortion and bring the people who are behind that into book. Federal government decries minus 2 trillion naira debt in legal operators. OAUTH sack 1,500 workers months after recruitment without pay. Apabio Gowan others urge Nigerians to emulate Onyanyika's virtues. Detail of that found on page 29. Bandits abduct director near military base as reports cite rising impact of insecurity. CBN intensify action against speculators as Naira rebounds slowly. Rerun elections. Here we are having voter apathy looms as IGP restrain movement in the 26 states that will be participating in the rerun tomorrow. 40 days after worries over delay in swearing in of the 11 Supreme Court justices. Nigerians sell their relative as low as 30,000 naira to traffickers. This is coming from a non-governmental organization, and they are revealing this to the government. We hope the government will work and actually together with the non-governmental organization to look into what can be done about this issue of human trafficking. Federal government targets 77% increase in IGR to fund projects and others. Detail found on page 7, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune newspaper, the big story, parents lament IGP moves AIG to Ekiti. 13 suspects arrested. We need help our children. Wife battling with life in kidnappers' den. Parents of kidnapped pupils cry out. You can find details on page 27. Benue community boils again. 15 bodies recovered. Several victims missing. Gunmen abduct Federal Housing Authority director in Abuja. Alleged 109 billion naira fraud. Ex-AGF Ahmed Idris kicks as EFCC tenders video evidence. Crude oil sales take over by CBN illegal, a statement coming from Atiku. Nigerians are paying over 200 unofficial taxes. This is a revelation coming from Daily. You can find details on page 6. INEC excludes PDP from Saturday rerun in Plateau. Court disqualifies PDP candidate in Ebonyi State. IGP orders restriction of movement in 26 states. PDP governors back call for state police donate 100 million naira to victims of Plateau crisis. You can find details on page 2, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On Nigerian News Direct, equity market rebounds by 1.63%. Investors gain 902 billion naira. Naira declines by 37.6% in January 2024. Detail of that can be found on page 3. And on the issue of Saturday election, the by-election that will be taking place tomorrow, police restrain movement in 26 states, and I think it's very important if you don't have anything to do in any crowded area, please remain at home while we watch how situations are in the various states where the by-election will be taking place. Still on Nigerian News Direct, Lagos procures additional rolling stone for blue red lines from China. The big story on Nigerian News Direct, revenue remittance. Atiku condemns CBN's takeover of crude oil sales, with the writer says action threaten operational efficiency of NNPC Limited. Detail found on page 4. 109 billion naira fraud. Ex-AGF accuses the EFCC of deceiving him to confess to allegations. And on the issue of the unpaid OAUTC workers stage peaceful protest over 14 months salary arrears. You can find detail of that. We have two pictures where we can see where Lagos is trying to procure those rolling stock for the blue and red lines from China. And then also downside, we also have another picture where we can see talking about the issue of the NMPCL. So you can do well to grab the paper in more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Vanguard newspaper, banks' borrowings from CBN rise 269% to 3.6 trillion naira on 1 month. You can find details on page 19. Why government should remove electricity subsidy, a statement from Power Minister. Tinubu congratulates Dangote on backing Senegalese award. 7 months not enough to fix Nigeria, a statement coming from the federal government in response to the complaints of hardship from citizens. You can find more details of that statement on page 9. The big story on the paper, after Ekiti, more children kidnapped in Benue. The writer saying armed headers kill 15 in Agatu. Bandits demand cough syrup, rise 290 million naira to release 7 hostages. Abducted Ekiti pupils, school, parents, community launch crowdfunding for ransom. Police arrest 8 suspects, urge residents to stay calm. You can find details on page 5. Establish state police to fight insecurity, PDP governors tell the federal government. And then we have a picture story where we can see PDP governors on sympathy visit to Plateau State. And at the downside of the paper, court jails actress 6 months for spraying and stepping on new Naira notes. You can find more details on page 6, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
The issue of kidnapping, insecurity is becoming, I don't even know, Rachel. I just can't help but wonder exactly what is the government doing concerning this. Because it beats my men. I mean, let's start from that of the Abuja, where we're seeing that the kidnappers there, because we are aware that about 6 people were being kidnapped in Abuja on the 28th of December, which was last year. And then right now, this bandit, they are requesting for 290 million naira. They're requesting for drugs. They are requesting for even spaghetti. They're even making choice.
Yes.
They even have a choice of what food they want to eat, Rachel. And you just can't help but wonder, I mean, are we trying to enrich this? Just like I said, it seems as if we have a ministry for terrorists.
They might not have an office, but
they might not have. Rachel, they have an office because they live in the bush area, so it is an office. They have a commander. They have the right to even have gadgets to record. So they make it look as if they have a territory. They have a territory, and that is why they have a leader there. And so I'm wondering, what is the government doing? I keep saying, Rachel, put them together in the whole of Nigeria. They are not beyond the government. So I'm wondering what is happening. Are we sleeping on duty, Rachel? Because I just cannot help that. Okay, just when we had that of Ekiti, here we're seeing that more kids were being kidnapped in Benue State. And you'll be expecting that this is the time where our security agency should be more vigilant to see what is happening. Okay, what happened to our local vigilantes? Because I know the number of states that have their own state police are few. I mean, we just saw Zafra launch theirs just recently, and then here we're seeing. I mean, it's just the southeast that have theirs. Talking about the Amote Cool, where we saw they even had to deploy some of their security agency to Ekiti to actually help the issue of this. So I'm wondering, and I keep asking, and I hope that the government has good answer, telling us that 7 months is not enough. It is enough for you to tackle the issue of
Very
insecurity,
enough,
because this permit me, this look more like a very flimsy excuse coming from the government, saying that so Nigeria should keep enduring and keep enduring and keep enduring. But what are the leaders, show us what you have endured so far ever since you got into position. Is it about the SUV cars you're driving? Did you endure? How about you using bicycles while Nigerians are suffering? Okay, here we're saying that very soon there will be a hike in the price of fuel very soon. What do you want Nigerians to do? We are seeing relatives have even resolved to selling. Yesterday we saw where a mother sold two of her children. For how much? And we're seeing here that according to this non-governmental organization, as low as 30,000 naira. That is how far, how bad situations are in the country presently. And here we are having a ministry of terrorists telling us how much to send. And if they don't do that, you end up losing your loved one. So you have no choice than to send this money. And here we are seeing that community is launching a crowdfunding. So I'm just hoping, honestly, Rachel, something should be done about this. It's very hard for you not to get emotional when you talk about situations like this, because we're talking about human lives. We're not talking about animals. So I hope that the government will wake up from their slumber and do something about the issue of insecurity in the country presently.
As it is now, crime is at its peak in Nigeria, and we just have criminals on a spree, knowing fully well that they are at a position where they can get away with whatever they want to. As it is now. That is why we will see a top official being kidnapped in Abuja. That is why we will see what is going on in Benue. We will see more in Ekiti, and it just keeps going on in Plateau. They know that they are at the point where they will go scot-free, they will be funded, and we can see it has gotten to the point of crowdfunding. When did we get to the point, Sele, where we are going for crowdfunding for ransom? Crowdfunding was created to help people come up with surgery bills, hospital bills, life or death situation. Somebody needs this, somebody needs that. Things to develop community and to make people's life better. And now we are going for crowdfunding for ransom, which automatically means indirectly we are funding terrorists, we are funding bandits, we are funding criminals, whether we like it or not by free will, but either way, we are funding crime. Now, this means more weapons for them. This means more money to bribe the already corrupt security agent. This means more money for them to take care of themselves and do more havoc, whether we like it or not. That is what it is. And then it's really sad. And then for us to have a federal government that is response to the hardship complaints coming from its citizens is telling us that 7 months is not enough. 7 months is very, very enough, Sele, to start seeing. The same way, it's already telling you, right, that if you put policies in place and they are not good, 7 months is enough for you to let you know that your policies were not good from the beginning. We can talk about the exchange, the importer and exporter window that we opened. If it was good, we will not be seeing a free fall in our currency as it is now. If that was a wise decision, we will not be having. The naira will appreciate gradually. It might not be fast, but we will definitely not be witnessing a free fall if your policy was good. Secondly, you sat down knowing fully well that we do not have functional refineries, and you remove fuel subsidy. Now, 7 months is enough for us by now to have had one refinery functioning, because we are not building these refineries from scratch. We are
Just
starting from,
rehab.
we
Yeah.
have them, yes, we are renovating, we are rehabilitating them, we are doing whatever it takes, but we are not starting. 7 months is good enough. You're taking away subsidy, and then the next thing is a refinery needs to function. So 7 months is enough for us to start seeing something. It might not be big. Of course, it can't take 7 months to build Nigeria, but for your policies, what are the outcome? By 7 months is good enough for us to say if these policies were good or bad in the first place. And you know what? 7 months is enough to fight corruption, banditry, and terrorism. You keep saying it, Sele. These people, they are number by number. They are not up to an entire state by number, because of course we do not have their stats. But let's imagine worst case scenario, they are not up to an entire state. So for that reason, 7 months is enough for you to clear them if you do have the intention. So what is the government trying to tell Nigerians? 7 months is enough for us to know if your government is going to do us right or not. And so far so good, it's failing us. And we have no option than to give you your remaining 3 months, 3 years, 5 months thereabout, to watch and see what will it be for Nigeria. And I just hope that there would be a turnaround somewhere along the line. But with the way things are going, absolutely nothing is working as it is now. It's not being negative, it's the fact. But we are hopeful that eventually things will start turning around.
You know, Richard, I've always said that if there is a will, there will be a way. And the body language we're getting is the fact that there's no willpower from our politicians and our leaders, because if you're willing to do something, you definitely find a way to actually sort things out. Are you happy with the number of Nigerians that are dying on a daily basis? Are you happy the number of abduction we are having on a daily basis? I mean, we keep saying we should be able to get to that point. I mean, it's a digital age. So we're expecting that we should have more intelligent, machines that will help us to be able to fish out these people. We get to know where they crawl out of and where they crawl back into, because, I mean, we see that like that of Ekiti. This kidnap happened in the broad daylight around 3 p.m. We're not talking about when it's dark. So I'm hoping that we'll see that for the remaining schools, there should be security to protect the children, because right now, kids are still going to school presently. School buses should be protected in a way, because definitely somebody is monitoring the movement. No wonder these students were being kidnapped. So we hope to see proactive measures from our government and the willpower to be able to fight insurgents in the state. Well, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily Times newspaper. FCT record 2,000 cases of gender-based violence in 100 days. This is coming from an official. You can find that story on page 5. NDDC executive director in 3.6 billion naira fraud case. Transport owners call for policy review to stem insecurity on roads. You can find that on page 5. Atiku flies federal government directive to the NNPCL to remit oil sale proceeds to the CBN. And the big story here, governors demand state police amid spike in killings and kidnappings. You can start reading that story inside the paper on page 4. And then we have 109 billion naira fraud. I was tricked by the EFCC to indict myself, coming from the Accountant General of the Federation. You can find more detail of that story in the paper. NIMED urges collaboration on climate change adaptation. You can find that story on page 2. And we have the picture story where we can see the governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the managing director of Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, while they were actually trying to look into working the visit to the CCECC headquarters in Beijing, China, where they are trying to get in some transport for the state. And that's all on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, pipeline explosion kills 5 oil thieves in Imo State. Security operatives swoop on forex dealers in Abuja. BDCs shut down over worsening scarcity. You can find details on page 2. On Plateau killings, PDP governors call for state police donate 100 million naira to victims. Runoff by-elections, IGP orders massive deployment of officers, restriction of vehicular movement in 26 states. Man family escape lynching, house set ablaze over alleged blasphemy in Katsina. You can find details on page 5. Controversy in National Assembly over retirement age. Clark orders lobby for 5 years extension as unions junior staff kick. You can find more details on page 27. PDP kicks as INEC excludes party from tomorrow's rerun election in Plateau State. CSO seek dialogue to prevent regional bodies disintegration. This is concerning ECOWAS and, of course, the military juntas of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger leaving. You can find details on page 6. Insecurity. 5 herdsmen attack Benue community, kills cause 15 dead bodies recover as bandits kidnap PHA director near military base in Buari. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
Something needs to be done about security in Buari of FCT because I just don't get to wrap my head what is in Buari, especially where we're having these bandits always there. So if security agency know that that place has become a war zone or it has become a zone soft spot, I think something should be done about residents that are living in Buari area so that they can be safe, because I'm just imagining people who are living there, the fear they actually have to live with. So we hope something will be done about that. And on First News newspaper, Atiku slammed federal government over transfer of NNPC revenue to CBN, says it's illegal. You can find more detail of that story in the paper. And on insecurity, PDP governors back calls for creation of state police. And the big story, alleged tenure elongation, federal government set to sack FRSC Corps Marshal. Pencils down senior deputy corps marshal as replacement as BIU intensify efforts to remain in office. You can find more detail of that in the paper. 81% of working Nigerians not adding value to the economy. This is coming from the presidential team. And you tend to wonder, what really do the government mean by adding value to the economy? Diaspora group accuses Anambra CP of diverting 20 billion naira cooperative investment. And on AFCON, senators rep to chair Super Eagles in Cote d'Ivoire because they will be having their match today with Angola. So we keep our fingers crossed to see how that match will be. Emeka Afon plotting to kill me. Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers speak from hideout. You can find more detail in the paper. 21 suspects arrested over killing of Ekiti monarchs, abduction of pupils. Police, this is coming from the police, and we're seeing declare ransom payment a crime. Well, what do the parents have? Do they have no choice than to look for a way to get their words back? If we do not want ransom to become legal, then we have to look for a way to protect lives and properties as well. Ayeda Tiwa swears in deputy calm caution ex-commissioners on utterances. And on by-election, IGP restrained movement in Lagos and 25 other states on Saturday by-election. Nigeria will have been worse without subsidy removal coming from the federal government. Tension in Akwa Ibom as hoodlums behead police officer. You can find more detail in the paper. And here we have a picture story where we can see the Minister for State for Environment, Dr. Saraku, during his familiarization visit to Dangote cement plant in Ogun State yesterday, and that's all in First News newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, Akpabio pleads with Germany to halt deportation of 12,000 Nigerians, citing increased security risks. Nigeria seeks semi-final ticket as quarter-final matches get underway. You can find details on page 16. Bureau de change operators load CBN on recent reforms in forex market, urges CBN to sustain tempo by revisiting suspension of Bureau de change windows in FX market. The big story on the paper, transfer of crude oil proceeds from NNPCL to CBN. Article speech fire says federal government action is illegal. Is an arbitrary order capable of undermining operational independence of NNPCL. Federal government must respect provisions of law and allow NNPCL to run as an independent company. Federal government vows stringent action against illegal miners. Umahi expresses joy as Tinubu releases funds for Abuja Kaduna Kano Road, second Niger Bridge bypasses orders. You can find more details on page 3. 4 months after a fair at Toll's death, PDP appoints Arong as national woman leader. Still on the papers, from inability to pay tuition fee, African AI Jadro Lita backs 200 million naira contract. My loyalty will be total, Adelami promises Aidatiwa after assuming office as Ondo Deputy Governor. Despite multiple assurances, student loan scheme fails to take off in January. You can start with the details on the front page. And we have a picture story aligning with Nigeria's drive to ensure cleaner energy, where we can see the GCEO of NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, second from left, and other officials at the commissioning ceremony of the 23,000 cubic meter ultramodern liquefied petroleum gas carrier. This is at the Alfred Tamil 10 by Tamil Development Company in Ulsan, South Korea recently. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
Alright, before we continue further with other paper analysis, we'd love to take a time out at this moment so that when we come back, we'll continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper and we'd love you to be part of it. So you can drop your comment on Facebook and on YouTube as well regarding any of the story that is of interest to you. I'm Sarah Elisha. I still have Rachel Tanzer with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel, for doing that. All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Nation newspaper. Pressure mounts on abductors of Ekiti pupils with the writer IG deploys AIG asset. Kidnappers lower ransom demand. You can find detail on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. I am the unifier of Edo PDP, says Agodalo, and then Edo Deputy Governor Adelami pledges to add value to the state. Detail found on page 6. Investors gain 902 billion naira in market rebound, and gunmen kill monarch. You can find that on page 5. The big story: Nairo's fall. CBN move against banks for hoarding $5 billion. Apex Bank deploy monitors in the DMVs to enforce compliance with extra rules. INEC exclude PDP from by-election in Plateau State. Court stop Eboyi PDP senatorial candidate. And also we see state police way to go, says governors, legal giants and others. Downside of the paper: federal government seek payment of 2 trillion naira debts from minors. You can find that story on page 4, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, glamour glitz as New Telegraph holds 2023 awards. You can find details on page 12 as they celebrate their 10th anniversary honor outstanding Nigerians corporate organizations. And then going down, you can see the full picture that is on the page, D-Day, and you can see the receivers of the award, companies and also individuals. Lenders credit to economy up 48.2% to 96.19 trillion naira. This is coming from the CBN, also saying currency outside banks rise to 3.43 trillion naira. You can find details on page 37. And on FDIS, United States investment in Nigeria totals $5.6 billion. The big story on the paper is on insecurity. Nigerians groan amid helplessness. Stakeholders demand new strategies to cope worsening security challenges. Only one Southwest governor to involve Gani Adams in securing Yoruba land. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger exit. Member nations must give ECOWAS 1 year notice, a statement from SAGE. You can find details on page 37. And on supplementary polls, IGP orders maximum security movement restriction. And that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, federal government bars states from collecting mining royalties. You can find that on page 8. Punch celebrate 50th anniversary with week-long activities. You can find that on page 8. Naira rebound as bank offload excess dollars. You can find that in the paper. The big story is on abduction. 15 states enlist 50,000 vigilante against kidnappers. Sokoto training 2,000 men. Delta recruiting 2,400. Ogun 16,500, says the governor's aides. Abductors threaten to kill Ekiti school children to reduce the ransom to 15 million naira. This is coming from parents, and I know that's not what the parents want to hear. So we hope that the security agents will be able to rescue these children before it gets that bad. And on by-election, IG warned troublemakers restrain movement in 26 states. Protests rock OAUTH over 2,000 sack workers. Well, we are having another paper saying 1,000, 5,000, 1,500. Here we're seeing 2,000. We hope that they get the figures right so Nigerians will not be led astray. Airfare to UK and US and others jumped by 55%. You can find that on page 36. And we still have on the Lagos Chinese firms Seal Rail breached the project deals. You can see the governor of Lagos State together with the Chinese firm. You can do out to read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Daily Independent newspaper, rising insecurity, our rally Southwest governors involve Adams to secure Yoruba land, coming from the Oni. You can find details on the front page. IFRS 17, dearth of actuaries threatens insurance COI submission of financials. The big story on the paper, bandits demand 290 million naira food items to free 7 FCT hostages. Threatening to kill 2 if ransom is not paid on time. Abduct FHA director near military camp in Abuja. Parents of abducted Al-Kalam Varsity students urge their release. Senate seeks Germany's partnership in security and power sector development. And on by-elections, IGP restricts movement in 26 states. Matawale disowns Katsina elders over criticisms of Tinubu policies. Only creation of state police will tackle insecurity, a statement coming from MPF says regional security outfits can check insecurity. Sanwo-Olu procures additional rolling stock for blue and red lines from China. Federal government unveils plan to procure more arms for national parks operations. You can find more details on page 29. At the downside of the paper, Tinubu condoles with Shetima over stepmother's death. And that's all the news on Daily Independent.
On Friday Leadership newspaper, again, student loan misses January deadline with the rider expansion hurdles, cause of delay coming from the officials, and students and parents press for timely commencement. You can find more detail of the student loan scheme on page 4. Nigeria versus Angola, Besiro plays down favorite attack. You can find more detail of that match on page 30. Kidnappers demand food items 290 million naira to release the FCT hostages. Still on the paper on the oil sales, CBN takeover of sale proceed from NNPCL illegal coming from Atiku. How to make the naira rise again. This is coming from the Omor Kray. You can find how he intend or what is his advice on how the naira can actually be appreciated again. And also we are having leadership award will spur me to do more coming from Natasha. You can find detail on page 4. And that's all on Friday leadership newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, I'm feeling like Gladiator 6 Bellingham on 6 months stay in Bernabeu. You can find details on page 3. Statement from Oyeka Oshime exposed Agunsa before Nigerians. You can find details on page 6. Afghan fan in trouble after being caught asking for woman's number. The big story on the paper, Nigeria versus Angola. We stand 50% chance against Angola. Coming from Pesero gives condition to field Wabali from start. I mean, this is too low coming from a coach saying they have 50% stand. Pesero, it means you are performing averagely as a coach to think that your boys only have a 50% chance. That is very low. You should be more optimistic. You can find details of his statement on page 6. Real Madrid to say goodbye to Luka Modric. You can find details on page 3. Marcus tagged idiot over luxury car and watches. And will be aware of Angola's threat. Injured Salah close to return. You can find details on page 2. We have Fury intimidate Usyk with dreadful image. More details can be found at the back page. Neymar's salary and bonuses leaked. Jesus doubtful for Liverpool test. You can find details on page 2. Real Madrid eyes Van Dijk. You can find details inside the paper, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Alright, let's take a look at what the world of business looks like, where we have Okonjo Iweala and others stress the need for value addition in Nigeria. And I think this is a point I would like to link you to the story, Rachel, where we saw in the paper the presidency saying that 81% of Nigerians are not adding value to the economy. So I'd like to understand what value they mean. I mean, is it that the pay doesn't even show, or what exactly do the government mean by 81% of Nigerians are not adding value to the economy of the country presently?
I mean, Sally, when you look at our employment rate and unemployment rate and poverty rate, it's okay to say 81% because how many percentage of our population are well employed? It's not just we have underemployment. You understand? So how many are well employed is important. How many are earning above minimum wage? How many have a good standard of living? And how many small businesses have been able to thrive? You understand? So when you look at the statistics, it's okay for Nigerian government to say that,
Nigerians
but
are not
then
adding value.
whose fault is it?
Exactly. The question I was about to ask. You're not adding
as
value. Who is
citizens
to be
not
blamed?
having value to it? However, the government would also be very wrong to say that we can keep that aside and then look at the other side. We pay taxes, Sele. We just saw how Dailies said that we are paying over 200 taxes in disguise. We are paying VATs that are outrageous. Do we want to talk about the VAT we pay to MTN? Do we want to talk about the tax we pay to our banks? The unnecessary deductions that you cannot explain or warrant. This all goes back to the federal government. Whether you like it or not, we have direct and indirect tax that we pay. If your tax system is faulty and you are not seeing enough as it should be, then it's still, all fingers are still pointing back to you regardless. And you can't even have a fully functional tax system because you know that even your payment system is faulty and is bad. So when you don't put the modalities for your citizens to add value to you, you're still at the receiving end of it. So rather than just sitting down there and giving numbers and percentage, start putting things that will make it that regardless however it is, there is value that you can feel coming out because you don't have to wait. You are the government. You have that control to be able to, I mean, forcefully
to influence
and
and make sure
influence.
that Nigerians
Exactly,
are
said
doing
it.
value
That's
to
the
the
word.
economy
Yeah.
venture. Well, we look forward to seeing that. Still on Business Day, we have on the issue of inflation, forex crisis put Nigerian used cars out of reach. You can find more detail of that on page 38. Business activities hit 13-month high amid Naira weakness. And we have oil theft in Niger Delta, old problem, new gangs. You can find more detail, and we hope something will be done about that. Tinubu launched Dangote for bagging Senegal's highest honor, and the big story for Business Day says Naira finds some relief as market digests CBN action. Analysts weight impact of the new rules on banks. You can find more detail of that on the front page, and then you continue on page 2. We have a picture story as well on the front page of the paper. You can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you. And that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you so much, Rachel, for doing
You're
this with
welcome,
me.
Sarah.
And also thank you to our viewers and supporters for always keeping a day with us and making us part of your morning every day. Until we come your way next week, do have a blessed weekend. And please, for those states that will be involved in by-election, do try and be peaceful, stay away from trouble, and do not cause trouble whatsoever. Have a blessed weekend ahead. Bye.